there were about 200 sets only. So these 10 prints came from, they're one of 200, and so we know that this is a very scarce type of print. And these are some of the most important ones, but certainly the most important watermarks in the whole series, the 435. So we'll start by going over to my left, and we'll start with the wood ibis. So here we see one of the water birds, certainly a large one, working in its natural habitat, and we could see that it was a very large print, one of the larger bird prints. The bird is larger in the print for this one. Now Hamill printed these, and I refer to it as a print, which is not entirely accurate. Each of these 200 different copies of this particular one would be slightly different because they were hand-colored over the Occitan original prints, but they were all hand-colored, and that added a little bit different tone to each individual one. So they're seen as individual works of art. Here we're looking at the king duck or king eider, and this was a bird that was not located in warm places. The wood ibis was seen by Audubon in Louisiana. This one, he actually went up, I think, he went up to Labrador to see it. It ranged from Labrador to the Arctic, and occasionally would go as far south as Massachusetts, but that's where he saw it, up in Labrador. So from 1832 to 34, he painted that. The two different ducks. They're certainly handsome. In 2001, the former head of the Public Services and Reference, Cindy Infantino, donated the restoration of this print to her late husband who died. And so this is one of the ones that has a particular name attached to it. This print shows a blue goose, or and along with what some people thought was a separate species back in the day of a snow goose. They're actually just different seasonal plumages of the same bird. And this was done around 1832, and then the one on the right later, I believe. But that's interesting that scientists have come up with more information about this. But certainly, Audubon noticed both the similarities and the differences. This Audubon bird was restored with funds provided by recently retired library staff member Judy Gilmurray, and it shows the fascination of the staff with the cooperation that the community provides. It's in honor of the Friends of the Library. Some of Audubon's birds were pretty exclusively northern birds. So here's the Arctic loon, and you can see that that's one that it was also called a diver, but it was done in 1832, and it was from a drawing he made as early as 1820. So this one was given the restoration was given by the Friends of the Lake Forest Library in 2001. So now we have the whooping print. This is one of the largest figures that Audubon was able to crowd out of this double elephant folio page. It was done early in 1821 to 1822, before the publication started. This was one of them that he probably used to help sell the idea to his painting to potential publishers and subscribers. This is one of 200 of the original elephant folio prints, and hand colored. And so it's even though it is very well known to the public and have seen this picture many places, this is one of the rare examples of that to be seen in a public setting. President of the Lake Forest Library was Alfred E. Hamill. He was an investment banker in Chicago, very learned, studied, a great book collector, and he was the president of the library when this building was built. So he worked with Edwin Hill Clark, the architect, on making many of the features that you see. So this is the west fireplace, and it has a carving over it. And it's a carving by Ulrich Longenecker, who was a European artist, sculptor, who'd gone to Milwaukee. Now, Hamel had hired him personally to do 2 centaurs for his house here in Illinois, on Illinois Road in the forest, in the late 20s. So he knew the artist and knew what his work was like. So this is Emerson, Ralph Waldo Emerson. Emerson wrote one of his essays was called Nature, and he was interested in the natural world and people's relationship to it. It was very influential in driving the rural movement in this country. So you have all these other birds in the room with the American mid-19th century philosopher Emerson, who was espousing that kind of idea for people's interest. This is the marsh hawk. There's 2 versions of it. And the bottom figure was done in 1820, but it wasn't until 1836 that the top and center birds were added. So he put all these things together in one print. He must have been fascinated by the marsh hawk in his work. So now we are in front of one of my favorite birds, water birds, the cormorant. And these birds are, again, northern birds. So you find them in Labrador, and that's up north beyond Quebec. And that's where they would go for summer. But in winter, they would travel south. And again, I see them in Arizona. So the one bird was done, the female with the mother and the little chicks we see there, she's feeding them, is 1833. And then he did the male in 1834. But he had been on a trip to Labrador to see them. And this is in memory of Charles Emerson, also donated, who was quite a reader. As I mentioned before, I think that the collector of all these plates was a hunter, and this is the one that proves it to me. Or let's say suggests it to me. Proof is different. This is the sage grouse. He painted them late 1836 to 1837. And they're still hunted in Wyoming as a bird. But these are grouse, and it's kind of bird that's popular in Europe, in Scotland for hunting, and certainly Wyoming is someplace that would have been attractive. I'm not sure where he actually found it and painted it. That's the sage grouse. The last of the 10 birds is the golden eagle. And this one was painted in Boston from a specimen that had been captured in the White Mountains of New England in 1833. Now, the picture is, you have to avert the eyes of younger children in looking at this, because he's just grabbed lunch, which is a white bunny. But this is again one of the very large water birds. It's not the bald eagle, it's the golden eagle. But it's certainly a very handsome version of one of the most important of the kinds of birds of prey that we've seen here today. And this final one was given by the restoration was donated by the Friends of the Library. So this was a major project of the Friends of the Library and several private donors to make these pictures available and in their best condition.